Join me with the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. If everyone could please put their phones on silent. We have a tight schedule today, so we're going to move as quickly as we can through our agenda items. And I want to thank CAOA for hosting us today. It's great to get to be here with all of you. And we're excited for all the events the next few days. We'll start with agenda item 2. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to board member introductions and board member reports. Why don't we start down on our left with Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not new, so I'm just going to jump right into my report if that works. I kind of met everybody. I'm Daniel Millie. I'm one of the Eastern Colorado representatives, and I'll just jump right into my report. We're pretty busy out on the Eastern Plains. Got a lot of things going on, a lot of projects that are wrapping up, a lot of projects that are just getting started. I'm just going to kind of go down my list and talk about some of the cool things our airports are going on. Lyman getting ready to do a taxiway reseal. Ray's working on a portion of the taxiway rehab, and pretty exciting stuff going on in Ray. There's a lot of new hangar development. They've got some new mechanic operations going on, and a lot of exciting things going on up in Ray lately. Been working with Yuma. The city administrator left fairly recently, and they as happens often at small airports, the chief of police has been, I want to say voluntold, but I don't know if that's the right term, but he's jumped in to help out with airport operations, and I've been working with those guys on some of the regulatory things that they don't know when it comes to aviation. And that's one of the things I try to do as a representative from the board and another airport operator, is to kind of, help those guys out when they have issues that they're not familiar with the regulations and things like that. So we've been working with those guys to keep them in compliance and operating normally. So they got the ramp expansion done in Akron. They're working on a terminal building update. They got a request for proposal out for that. Just as of actually, I believe it's next week out at Fort Morgan, the new management is just getting ready to start. It's going to be operated by a company called Crop Air. They're actually out of Eaton, so they're going to jump right back in there and get Fort Morgan going again. That's kind of exciting that those guys are going to hit the ground running there. Let's see what else we got going on. Lamar just got their part of their taxiway project done, and they've got a ton of crack fill. I did a little crack fill back in October, and when I took the machine back, I saw just pallets and pallets of crack fill material, and I had a lot of anxiety just looking at those. If any of you have ever run a crack fill machine, you know what I'm talking about. But it's nice that it's there, but it's a lot of work. So let's see. They're working on a new ramp rehab out at Meadow Lake here, coming up actually next year in 2026. Some exciting news at Spaceport. They just got the new NIPIAS report, which actually upgraded them from a regional airport to a national airport, which is awesome. That really opens them up to some new funding opportunities, and congratulations on that. With they had a record number of operations, 126,000 operations in 2024, and so those guys are just cruising. So that's exciting to see. Out in Burlington, we are kind of still in the middle of our taxiway project. Winter set in, and we had to pause the project because the ground froze up. So we're waiting for the ground to thaw to finish that up. But we do have our generator up and operational, which is exciting. We've got our new reel lights installed and just waiting on a flight check on those reel lights. And we're just cruising right along there too. So that's all I've got for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Daniel. Brianna, welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Hi, it's Bree, technically. Bree Lehman. I'm one of the newly appointed community representatives to the board, which was created by HB 24-1235. I'm from Colorado. My family is from the Western Slope, so I've got, as I've said, sort of feet in both sides of the state. My background is I'm a landscape architect. I run a construction company, so I'm really familiar with a lot of the sort of nitty-gritty technical stuff that we go into here, like the horror of seeing all that crack fill issues. I've been involved with the community and aviation issues, I think, for 5 years now. So through that time, I hope I've tried to learn a lot about aviation and the industry from all perspectives. And I really look forward to being part of this in a positive way and bringing some of the community perspective to this group, but then also taking this perspective back to the community so that we can hopefully move forward in a way that really benefits and allows both of these areas to grow and thrive together.
Thank you, Bree. Angela, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Sorry. Okay, can everyone hear me? Thank you. I'm Angela Padalecki. I'm the executive director at the Grand Junction Regional Airport, and this is my first meeting on the CAB representing Western Slope governments. So my report will be fast. As 2024 has come to a close, airports are getting final numbers in, and it's clear that it was the busiest year ever on the Western Slope in aviation, both on the GA side and on the commercial passenger side. I think almost every airport set records. It was a really neat year to be part of the Western Slope airport community, where in Grand Junction, we welcomed back Salt Lake City service on Delta. In Eagle, they've had a humongous year. Probably most notably, they added Alaska Airlines service. Montrose also, I'm sure, will set records. Breeze started service in Grand Junction and in Montrose, and I know Tony down in Durango had his busiest year ever, and this year looks even better with some new service on United to Houston. So we're really busy out there with commercial service and lots of airfield projects and terminal projects going on. So last year was also a record-breaking year for Western Slope airports when it comes to grant funding. We received tens of millions of dollars in federal funding and lots of CDOT funding as well. So we're all preparing for a busy construction season with busy traffic as well. For those airports on the Western Slope who have contract towers, we're all preparing for those contract towers to transition from the current provider, Serco, to the new provider, Robinson Aviation. Grand Junction is one of those airports, as is Eagle. There have been some challenges along the way. And so I know in Eagle, they're really hoping that next week goes smoothly, but it's really a painful transition when they're not able to retain current staff. So busy and a little bit stressed with those elements, but optimistic about the new contracts. That's all I have.
All right, I'm Steve Lee, and welcome to all the new members. I look forward to working with you. I work at Denver International Airport, but my board position represents the Colorado Airport Operators Association, or the airport association in the state. I'll keep my comments brief, but we'll be talking about a lot of the issues, I think, during the conference that we've got to deal with. One I did want to touch on, though, is transition of our ARF trucks to fluorine-free foam. AFFF is being replaced. We're about 3/4 of the way through our trucks at Denver International Airport. It's a slower process than I expected, but we've learned a lot from it. One thing I wanted to comment on is, again, I've said this many times, but thank you to CDPHE for that program, the Take Back program. That basically is $40 a gallon of the old AFFF that's being replaced. That number, I think, was made up before I think a replacement even existed. So it was a wild guess. But what I'm finding is the most important part of that program is the second half, which is they will then come and pick up the old AFFF, take it away and dispose of it. One thing I'd just encourage us as airport operators to do is continue the discussion with CDPHE. I think that they're open to it, but we found that there are a lot of costs that we didn't really account for before the process started. Just one example is as we rinse the trucks out, and for us, we're following the process that takes really 5 rinses. And each of those rinses is multiple cycles through, but 5 rinses, and that rinsing material has to then be disposed of because it's taking away that PFAS. And if we can come up with a way of helping airports fund those side costs associated with the replacement, that would be awesome. So with that, I will end my report and thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Steve. Mark?
Good morning, I'm Mark Matlin. I'm the member at large in more ways than one, I think, for the board. I want to join Dan, Kent, and Steve in welcoming our new members. I think you're going to find your service on this board very fulfilling and very worthwhile and enjoyable. So we're looking forward to having you. I have 4 things that I want to talk about. One is that there's a not really well-known change in the airspace around Centennial and Buckley coming. It was to go in effect on February 20th. It's been delayed. Basically, what's happening is the Class D airspace is being expanded around those 2 airports. That's very important for the local pilots in the area to understand what's changing. Some of the Class E is going away. And so that change, though, which has been on the books for a while, again, it's been postponed, but keep an eye out as that information comes out, because again, that Class D airspace will be significantly larger than what it is today. I think Angela mentioned what's going on at Eagle County in the change from Sertico to Robbins in air traffic control. As these changes, typically the new contractor come in, hires the air traffic controllers from the former contractor. That's not happening. There is an issue about the amount of pay that Robinson is offering, RAV is offering their new controllers. So I think, we're all watching to see what happens on February 1st when they're supposed to take over, but that's certainly an issue. In the meantime, the fallback will be Tracon will handle a lot of the traffic going in there. Last board meeting, Bill Payne mentioned this, and I think it's important for us to pay attention to that the State Office of State Public Safety and Communications is now refusing to allow L3 Harris to use the state microwave system for the ADSB. This has an impact on our on airports that are Durango, Montrose, Gunnison, and Telluride. In fact, up to this point, the state board is not, or the state office is ended communications with L3, although I understand, Dave and Bill, there's going to be finally a conversation this week about that, but that's pretty important to us because it'll shut down surveillance radar in those areas, and that's very much a safety issue. It's a little bit ironic that the Public Safety Communications Office is doing something that could impact the safety of the flying public in Colorado. So hopefully that gets resolved. Relevant to us, things that are happening in Washington, D.C., Mike Whitaker, the FAA administrator, has stepped down. His replacement hasn't been named yet, although there's a rumor that the JSX CEO, gentleman by the name of Alex Wilcox, is in the running for that. Mr. Wilcox is a former executive at JetBlue. In fact, he is one of the founders of JetBlue, and is the CEO of Kingfisher Airlines. So we'll see if that happens. Not to be political, but it is kind of interesting. I read a statement that one factor that may influence President Trump's choice will be Elon Musk, who has been at odds with the FAA for slowing down Starship operations. And so, we'll have to watch and see what happens there. Good news is that Sam Graves, Congressman Sam Graves, who's the Republican from Missouri, who has been serving as the chairman of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, has been reappointed to that position. And Sam is, as many of us know, is a great friend to aviation, very knowledgeable in aviation. So it's great to have him in that leadership position continuing going forward. Sam Duffy, who's a former Wisconsin congressman, has gone through his interviews or his reviews to be the next Secretary of Transportation. And so we're waiting to see, if his nomination was unanimously approved by the Senate Commerce Committee, and that goes to the full Senate for confirmation, then that should happen shortly. In California, the fuel distributors and sellers of fuel have responded to a motion that was entered by the Center for Environmental and Health that would stop them from selling leaded avgas. And right now, in one airport in California, they're selling Swift. In another airport, they're selling the GAMI G1000. The distributors are concerned, saying that that the fuel still has not been proven. It's not really considered to be commercially available, and that it would ground by ending the sale of leaded fuel until these tests and certifications have been completed, that it would ground a significant portion of the generation fleet, including aircraft used for firefighting, law enforcement, and other essential public services. So we're watching that very carefully as that goes through the courts out there. And my last item is that I mentioned this in the last board meeting, that Wings Over the Rockies, the Captain Jeppesen Foundation, has opened scholarship applications, which online, and this is for flying scholarships. The foundation is going to award $25,000 up to $12,000 each flying scholarships for young people aged 15 through 19. That application process is online and open until February 14th. So if you know a young person who wants to fly and has the capability to, and the interest to do so, this is a great way. Last year, the foundation issued 26 $12,000 scholarships, and after having and interviewing 119 applicants. So, please get the word out that that this is available. And Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome, Kevin.
There it is.
Good morning, and thank you for the welcome. I'm Kevin Ryan. Can you hear me okay? Good. I'm Kevin Ryan. I'm the second community member as a result of House Bill 1235. Very much appreciate the welcome. I was warned how informed this board is based on Mark's update. Really just phenomenal. Look forward to learning today. I have been participating virtually over the last couple of these board meetings, so eager to jump in. I live in Superior, Colorado, just outside of Boulder. I was formerly an elected official, a trustee in Superior, serving from 2016 to 2020. At that time, I got to know our neighbors pretty well in Jefferson County and Rocky Mountain Airport, and helped the creation of the Noise Roundtable, which unfortunately has since been disbanded. So I've been involved peripherally in airport-related issues for a number of years. Personally married, 3 kids, 2 in college, and now they're on the way next year. Professionally, I work in healthcare. I'm an executive for a company that brings data to clinicians so they can make more informed decisions, and I hope to bring some of that expertise today and through my service. Thank you.
Welcome, Commissioner.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leslie Summey, Arapahoe County Commissioner, brand new board member, and thank you very, very much for having me. I'm just going to talk a little teeny tiny bit because I am so new and don't want to take up that much space. But I do need to start with Centennial Airport slipped from #1 in aircraft operations at U.S. General Aviation Airports in 2023 to being now #3 in 2024. We're going to change that though. Centennial Airport is still the only airport in Colorado that has unleaded avgas for sale and is the second largest user of UL 94 in the U.S. One of the only few airports in the U.S. with an FAA study or supported study group. We're looking at noise mitigations for aircraft training operations, and I just stepped down from the Centennial Airport Noise Roundtable. So we're very, very excited to have the FAA at the table on this one. We have 9 new hangars currently under construction that are expected to be available for lease in 2025. And lastly, our renovated hotel located at Centennial Airport will be opening soon as a 4 Points at Sheridan. So, Mr. Chairman, that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I love your enthusiasm. Welcome to the board. Awesome. So I'm Trinity. I'm the pilot organizations representative for the state of Colorado. And I have a report here, starting with Colorado Pilots Association. James, would you stand up? If you all don't know James, he is the airport rep for the Colorado Pilots Association. If you have not met him, please meet him. He will go around and introduce himself, I'm sure, to you. He was here last year as well. But welcome, James. I'm glad you're here to represent the Colorado Pilots Association. Just a couple things about Colorado Pilots Association, and I too will keep my report short. They have an awesome website. It is called CPA Flightlines. Super great. They also offer corporate memberships. So if anybody, your airports, you have corporate membership opportunities to join Colorado Pilots Association to stay ahead of what they're doing. Just like the scholarships that Mark talked about, CPA holds a ton of scholarships, as do all of the pilot organizations. CPA is one of the bigger ones. And moving on from there, I will go into Women in Aviation is going to hold a conference in Denver, which is really exciting because it's the first time that the Women in Aviation conference will be in Denver at the Gaylord. 3,000 to 5,000 Women in Aviation. It tends to be slightly pilot-centric, but any of you who would like to send your airport female staff or male staff to the Colorado or to the Aviation conference, that would be great. You'll see me there. You'll see Hetty. Hetty Carlson will be there, right, Hetty? Yes. All right, very good. Women in Aviation, the Colorado 99s continue to hold all their meetings. They just had their board meeting. Most of the organizations just had their planning event meetings for 2025. And they have a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. Any of these organizations that you have an interest in hearing more about, let me know. I can connect you with the right people. EAA meets often all over the state. They have meetings about IFR flying, VFR flying. So if you're interested in EAA, let me know. I can connect you with the right people. Civil Air Patrol, as we know, we are very fond of our Civil Air Patrol here in Colorado. We have long-time members of Civil Air Patrol, Gary Toby being one for 40 years. He has a 40-year anniversary this year. I'm not sure if will Gary be there tonight at the legislative event. All right. Well, if you see Gary Toby, well, congratulate him on his 40 years with Civil Air Patrol for Colorado. And I think there are other organizations, but that's going to be it for me. I'm from Colorado. I've been here all my life. I've lived here my entire life. Went to college here, have 4 kids here. They all went to Colorado colleges, two from CU and 2 more like you said, 2 more coming into college. And my career is, I'm a jet pilot, and I also work in AR, XR, VR, AR, immersive technology. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
I'm Clay Clark. I'm one of the positions on the board, and I am the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's ex officio member, which I think it's ex officio is just a fancy way of saying I don't get to vote. My role is really to provide input and really to be a resource for the board on issues related to health and environment that come before the board. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Relative to myself, I'm Ken Holsinger. I represent West Slope local governments. Honored to serve as the chair. Welcome to all the new board members. Look forward to working with you all. I'll keep my report short as well, but I think the LA fires have really put an exclamation mark on the importance of firefighting aircraft. Many of the same risks that have led to the LA fires, of course, are also present here in Colorado. And every single one of those firefighting aircraft, those pilots were trained on GA aircraft. And the same goes for every pilot, whether they be medical, airline, or flying for our national defense. So I think that just underscores again how important it is what you all do, and that we keep GA safe, affordable, and available to all. And with that, let's go on to item number 4, annual board member conflict of interest statements. Caitlin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. In each of your packets that was sent out, and then one specific to each of you is in front of you this morning on the table, is your annual conflict of interest statement. They are signed the first meeting of every calendar year in order for us, not us specifically as the staff, just as the office in general, to be able to memorialize the conflict of interest that you may have, whether those be real or perceived. So if you would fill those out and get them signed, and I'll pick them up after the meeting. But the conflict of interest statements, that was a requirement from the 2009 state audit. And it has been, we've obviously kept it going the whole time, but if anybody has any questions as to why or what we do with them, let me know. This is one of the meetings that they're very important because we actually are giving grants to specific airports. And because some of you represent specific airports or specific education entities or whatever, this allows you to memorialize your conflict so that we can have that as a member of record in addition to any of your abstentions during the vote as well. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Let's move on to 2025 board elections. Barbara?
I'm going to stand so that I can see everybody. My name is Barbara Stow, and I'm a Senior Assistant Attorney General with the Colorado Department of Law. Pursuant to CRS 43-10-104, the board elects officers, including a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. And I appreciate the honor of assisting with elections this year. We'll start with the position of chair. The chair's responsibilities are to preside over board meetings, to represent and when appropriate, speak for the board, to provide leadership to the board and the division, to call when they deem it appropriate special meetings and pursuant to CRS 24-64023, executive sessions of the board, and to create such committees and subcommittees comprised of members of the board as they deem appropriate. Do we have any nominations for chair?
I nominate Kent Holsinger.
Okay. Do we have a second? Mr. Holsinger, are you willing to accept the nomination?
I am.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations? Okay. All in favor of Kent Holsinger in the position of chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Holsinger, on your election to chair the board. Okay, next up is the position of vice chair, and this position holds the responsibilities of assuming the duties and responsibilities of the chair in the event the chair is unavailable. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I haven't talked to him, but Mark Van Tine has done a great job. I nominate Mark Van Tine.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Van Tine, are you willing to accept the nomination?
I am, thank you.
Do you have any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor of Mr. Van Tine for the position of Vice Chair of the Board, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried.
Thank you.
This has been pretty simple so far. I like that. That's great. Okay, next up is the position of secretary, and the responsibilities of the secretary are to assume the responsibilities and duties of the vice chair in the event the vice chair is unavailable. Do we have any nominations for secretary?
I nominate Trimby Zabo.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Trimby, are you willing to accept the nomination?
I am.
Do we have any other nominations? All right, hearing none. All in favor of Trimby Zabo for secretary of the board, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, Trimby, on being elected secretary of the board. Okay, all the officer positions of the board have now been filled. Is there a motion to close the election?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carried. That closes the elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, I think everyone has a copy of the minutes. Agenda item 6, would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, very good. And we'll go on to agenda item 6.1, the December 11th, 2024 CAB meeting. Did I miss?
Yeah, you're on the vote.
Okay, thank you. Item 7, public comments. Given we're on a really tight schedule today, we're going to limit comments to 2 minutes. And just a reminder that these are public comments. This is not a Q&A session. I know we have at least one public comment. Please.
Good evening. Good evening. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everyone. Brad Walker, Town Superior. I'm a pilot that flies out of Rocky Mountain Metro. I'm a proud member of AUPA and some of the other alphabet groups that represent general aviation. Comments today are, it's nice to see you, Ms. Lehman. It's nice to see you again, Kevin. We have a long history together. I know that the board would be well informed to know that both of you have been strong advocates of curtailing aviation at Rocky Mountain Metro, in particular, landing fees, curfews, and operational restrictions, which Jefferson County has formally told the town of Superior that it's unlawful and they will not do. Ms. Lehman, you were also a strong advocate of Boulder suing the FAA, and I think that's very important and informative. Mr. Ryan, you and I have a long history together. You were my elected official for a long time, and you advocated for the town to write tickets for pilots to focus their efforts on pilots and operators out of RMMA for enforcement action as a member of the town board. You both have encouraged the lawsuits and been involved there. None of this matters, though, because the state attorney who's here can remind you the function of this board is to support aviation across the state. It's not to focus on individual airports on the Front Range for some kind of targeted enforcement action. On a positive note, Commissioner Sumney, it's unfortunate, I guess, that Centennial dropped to number 3. But I see Airport Director Dahl from Rocky Mountain Metro in the room, and hopefully we can have some friendly competition and beat you. So we'll take that as a positive, and hopefully that'll be some friendly competition there. Hope to see everyone, talk to you more, and thank you for my comments.
Thank you, Rod. I understand we have a comment online. Neil?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity for public comment. By way of introduction, my name is Neil Shaw, and I've been a proud resident of the state for nearly 40 years. I grew up in Arvada, moved to Superior about 20 years ago, and began serving as a trustee, which is now referred to as a council, in 2018. So enough about me. As you're all aware, House Bill 24-1235 had support from virtually all stakeholders last year: pilots, tenants, airport operators, and impacted residents. This was an impressive level of collaboration given the friction that often exists between these groups. I had the opportunity to provide testimony last year in support of the bill, and there are a couple of items that I was in strong support of. The first was in naming 2 additional members to the CAB that were not trained pilots and who resided in the community impacted by noise and lead emissions. I'm thrilled by the appointment of both Bree and Kevin and applaud the division for acting quickly to appoint 2 well-qualified members of the community. The second point of interest and concern is related to the requirement for an airport to certify compliance with any easements within each grant application. As I review the packet, I understand that you'll be reviewing 31 projects at 27 different airports totaling almost $14 million. I understand that not all grant requests require any sort of certification on compliance, but what is not transparent in the materials is what staff has done to confirm the applicants have complied with the new state law. As you make your way through the approval process, may I simply ask that you inquire of the grant applicants whether they are in compliance with the aviation easements and what efforts were undertaken to ensure that compliance. Thank you again for the excellent work, and I look forward to hearing more about some of the work on the grants this morning. Thank you.
Neil, are there other public comments?
Good morning. My name is Mike Fronoff. I'm Executive Director for Centennial Airport. First of all, I want to welcome all the new CAB board members. We look forward to working with all of you going forward. I just had a couple of things to add to Centennial Airport update. One is that we are doing a runway run on Saturday, June 7th. The registration for this opens at 10 a.m. this morning. I have a stack of flyers here that we'll leave at the front desk up front for anybody that's interested in participating. Last year's event was really successful. We had about 1,000 runners. This year we're opening up to 1,500 because there's such a strong demand for people to want to come out. The funds from this event goes to the Centennial Airport Foundation, a nonprofit organization for the airport. And we've created 3 different grants that I also want to kind of announce as well. The first grant is for aviation management. It's in the name of Robert Oleslagers, our long serving executive director at Centennial Airport that recently passed. Then we'll also have a pro pilot scholarship and an aircraft maintenance scholarship. And all 3 of those scholarships are $10,000 each. So if you know somebody that's interested, that's in the field, interested in a scholarship, please have them look that up on our website and apply for that scholarship. The only other thing I was going to mention is that we have a go-kart track at Centennial Airport called the Colorado Karting Circuit. That's just reopened for business, and they're going to be building buildings this coming spring. So please come out, bring your families. It's a great team building event to do with race against your family and your friends and have a lot of fun. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, seeing no other public comments, we'll move on to agenda item 8, Director's Report.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things relative to Mike's event. Our division was there last year with a booth and engaging with the community and the users. I was pretty happy to see that the line for our aeronautical charts was actually about 4 times longer than the beer line. So I think that speaks to how people view aviation at Centennial, but we'll look forward to being back there again this year, Mike, to do that. We'll bring more charts this year so we don't run out, but anyway, great event. So thank you. Just one brief thing for the director's report, Mr. Chair. We've talked about this at previous meetings. Kip McLean, our aviation planner and resident expert pilot on staff, has been working with FAA over the last many months and the Colorado Pilots Association to work on charting mountain passes on the FAA sectional charts. This was pioneered in Alaska a couple of years ago. We were the first state outside of Alaska to work with FAA to get these mountain passes charted here in Colorado. And for you pilots in the room, what we've done is we have taken 20 mountain passes. They now have VFR waypoints that you can program into your GPS, and you can fly right to the correct pass rather than trying to guess if you're in the right spot or not. So kudos to Kip for making that work. We had a great relationship with Colorado pilots and FAA to make that happen. So definitely a big safety improvement for our pilots. The newest one that will come on here, you'll see at the next chart cycle, is still hard to read in the bottom, but it's a warning that basically enhances pilots' awareness in the mountains by saying there's highly technical flying here. Consult the directory for more information on these passes. So again, great for the FAA to do that. It's really tough to get the FAA to want to add more stuff to charts because they're already pretty complicated. So this was a big win. So Kip, thanks for your work on that. I'll give Kip another shout out, and shame on me for not putting a picture up here. Pretty remarkable. Kip is a very accomplished glider pilot and glider owner, if you didn't know that. And he made his first flight of the year here on the 24th. And of course, gliders don't get into the air by themselves. They get towed by another airplane. And Kip was flying the glider that was powered by the first unleaded avgas powered tow aircraft in Colorado. So very cool. Hope they had a good flight. I don't know if he got any lift when he was that cold, but anyway, so kudos to that for sharing that. And I know Sean's posted it up on Facebook. So that's all I had for my director's report, Mr. Chair.
Great work, Kip. Thank you, Dave. Okay, let's go to agenda item 9, financial updates, dashboard. Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the new members of the board. My name is Bryce Shuck. I'm the business manager for the division. We'll go through the financials here relatively quickly, but as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to stop me. December's revenue came in at 4.1 million, which was 89% of the forecasted 4.6 million. We continue to see variance between what's reported to DOR and what actual fuel filings are with the issues with United transitioning to Sinclair and other fuel providers at Denver. I'm working closely with the DOR to ensure this is tracked. Fully anticipate we'll see the revenue show up soon, but I've been saying that for a few months, but we know where it is and what the explanation is for why we're short. The delta between our actual and expected revenue is more than entirely made up with that. Right now, we're tracking at about 21 million in revenue for the year. Our forecast is 57 million. Halfway through, you can see that we're light there, but if we take the actual United filings historically, we're actually trending closer to 60, 61 million in revenue. So not worried about it. We just want to see it hit the account and hit the numbers. So we're chasing that down continually here as well. Normally, this is one of the meetings where we update our yearly forecast. Without the purveyance of good numbers, we're just leaving it the same for now. As soon as we do get that number, I will provide a out of cycle kind of update to revenue forecast once that's all been trued up. But until then, we're just kind of playing the holding and projecting game. But every indication we have and historical data point we have, there's nothing to be concerned about. It's just fighting that battle to get that collected with the transition there. Mark.
So Mike, can I ask a question? Is there a way that we can incentivize them to?
So incentivize isn't the right word, but the DOR has started to throw I don't say threat, but the conversation of a potential audit out there if they don't get these filed right away.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I used the wrong word, encourage.
Yes. So yeah, I've been working with them, giving them we know the data is pretty static as far as the percentage of Denver fuel to overall. The percentage United has been there is significant, obviously, as the biggest vendor. If this was another fuel provider, it would be a footnote. We wouldn't be tracking it this way, but that's roughly 40% of the division's revenue that we haven't gotten so far this year. So a significant number. But yes, I am working with DOR. They are aware of the urgency on our side to get that. Never mind as we start getting into fiscal year end and admin budgets and things like that. But overall, it's not something we're concerned about. We know it's there. It's just a matter of collecting it. And thankfully, as you'll see on the next slide, we've got the cash balance where we don't need to be concerned that, oh, geez, we're running light. That's not the case. Yep. With that, I'll segue right into the cash balance slide. We finished December with 23.5 million in the bank. It was a $200,000 increase from November's number. A little bit unexpected for the month. We're projecting a slight decrease, but it's just the volume of drawdowns came in was slightly less than we anticipated on grants. So that counteract to that is the cash balance builds up a little bit. Again, if we had the United funding, the projection is that we would have an additional 3.6 million still in the bank. So the division remains exceptionally healthy from a cash balance standpoint. We are anticipating the drop down to about 23 million in January because we do still have drawdowns coming in and some of the ones that we expected last month that were a little bit late coming in. So overall, we're still in terrific financial shape, even with bits and pieces coming here and there in the United issue. We remain very healthy, as we'll talk about here, in addition here on the contingency slide. So next slide. Tax expenditures by month. We sent out disbursements of 2 million in December. Sales tax being 1.8 million of that. Excise on Avjet 148,000 and about 15,000 for excise on Avgas. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Trend lines continue to follow. Revenue goes up one month, disbursements go up the next month type of thing. So nothing out of the ordinary on that slide. Our contingency analysis that I referred to earlier. We run a budget and forecast model that when we're giving grants out, we know that we've got the money either on hand or in a worst case scenario, 12 months out, where oil drops to $45 a barrel and flowage at Denver drops to 35 million gallons. Right now, current prices were $73 a barrel oil, and Denver has averaged over 48 million gallons over the past 12 months. So the reality is obviously significantly rosier than the worst case, but we use that model, given the ebbs and flows of the industry and the impact it has on the division's finance. So when we come before you doing grant programs, and we're giving grants today on a number you guys have approved back in August, that budget is already calculated. It's either on hand or going to be on hand, even in a doomsday scenario. So that's what's led us to be completely healthy financially. Go back through COVID, our cash balance actually increased through COVID because of the way that we model and forecast and things like that. So just informational only on this part here, but as always, when it comes to August, we'll review the prices and worst case scenarios and apply what the board wants to do with that. But just more indication of how healthy the cash balance is and the grant programs are that we have. Our admin expenses, state mandated cap is 5% of the previous year's fiscal revenue, which was 2.7 for this million. You all approved 845,000 for our budgetary spend. Right now, we are actually forecasted to spend about 756,000, which would put us at 1.4% for an admin budget for FY24. Well below the statutory cap, nothing out of the ordinary there. So we continue to be an incredibly lean organization and are in no worries about getting close to that 5% cap. And the final slide is fuel flow at Denver International Airport. Being January, we're missing the third full line graph going through there, but you do see a little orange dot there on the January for the projected part. Denver came in at 54.3 million gallons, the highest December on record, and a new all-time high. This makes 9 straight months of all-time monthly highs, and 11 of the 12 months in 2024 that hit all-time monthly highs. The number was up 21% from November and up 19% from the previous December. These numbers were up 16% from the forecast and 46.7 million gallons. I know I had mentioned at the last meeting, thought the December number we were given was a little bit light, and it ended up being a little bit light just based on the historic bump from November. So good news all around. The forecast for January flowage is 44.3 million. That would be a decrease from 18% in December, but a 2% increase from January 2024. And stop me if you've heard this before, would be a new all-time monthly high. That's it for the financial update. Happy to answer any questions on there or not on there.
Questions for Bryce? Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you, Bryce, for being so communicative with the board and so straightforward, easy to hear, easy to listen, easy on the eyes. Your charts are great. And I
appreciate the feedback of why at the end. Thank you.
All right, let's move to 9.2 administrative updates. Skip.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm Kip McLean. I'm an aviation planner for the division, and I cover the northeastern region of the state. This is going to be a very brief administrative grant update, and no action will be required by the board. This is purely informational. So the first item will be a new internship at Centennial Airport. Centennial Airport has applied for and was administratively approved for a $43,680 grant to support hiring 2 candidates that will participate in their 1-year aviation management internship program. And the division will provide 50% match on their $21 per hour wage. The next item is an actual grant amendment. This is going to Vance Brand Municipal Airport up in Longmont. Vance Brand applied for and was administratively approved to amend grant 24 LMO02 with $41,301 to remedy a capital deficit brought about by unexpectedly high bid amounts in completing the airport's extensive concrete apron pavement maintenance project. And that's it for grant administrative updates. Any questions?
Thank you, Kip. Okay, let's move on to 9.3. Bryce.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a FY25 business action item requested. This is increasing the Education Workforce Development Cost Center by $45,000 in budget. This would bring the total amount up to $845,000 budget without overcomplicating things, as that number sounds off. When we redid the cycle of the education grants here back in October, which you approved for an additional $400,000 in funding, which likely is hitting in calendar year 2025. This is our getting things prepared. We had previously done an out of cycle grant for CAOA for training, airport training. This is us requesting the same funds for that. That doesn't affect the current education program. It just lives within the cost center. So we're looking for that, which will be probably an April action item as far as the official grant approval. But we're just looking for the budget so that we can get that lined up and stuff. So we're looking for an additional $45,000. And then just for additional context on the budget, you'll hear later as we talk through the statewide initiatives for FY26, it'll be back down to the $445,000. We're just going to encompass that all together. So we don't have to do the out of cycle. It's the realization we have the program that we want, but this really needs to be in the same bucket from a cost center perspective. So this is the final cleanup for FY25. FY26 will be clean and more synergist as we move forward. But that's the information around that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but we are looking for the board to approve an additional $45,000 to the Education and Workforce Development Cost Center for FY25.
Questions for Bryce? Would entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Very good. Okay, let's go to agenda item 10, Bryce.
All right, now we're going to talk about the FY26 part of the meeting. You will get a full list here later of all the statewide initiatives and grants and everything that we're approving. I do these 2 separate requests here. Outside of that, simply because they are more administrative types. So first off, we are looking for approval for our administration budget and our program management budget. Those are split out based on staff, based on the allocation of resources. Previous years, the total amount approved by the board was $1.5 million. That was broken down as $845,000 as admin costs, $655,000 as program delivery. As you all know, we're planning on adding a new staff member soon-ish that we're going through the program for. So all of that, these are more salaries of the division and other costs, specifically of program management, but with admin as well. For the FY26 budget year, we're looking for approval for the program delivery cost center to have $775,000 and the administration account to have $900,000. From the admin perspective, given the current forecasted revenue of $57 million, that would put us at about $1.6 million for an admin budget in FY26, well below the 5% cap. As I referred to earlier, even if we do come into issues where we don't get that United funding, we would still be, I believe it comes at like 4.3 million or 4.3%. We would still be under the 5% cap. without having to play the financial, well, this isn't real kind of game. So either way, we're not in danger of this standpoint. So again, looking for a total budget approval of 1.675, 775,000 for program delivery and 900,000 for administration costs.
Questions for Bryce? Entertain a motion. Oh, did you have a?
No, I was just gonna make a comment for our new board members that, one of the things, and maybe you saw it in Bryce's original messaging, which is the division has always been very, very careful of the cost on the admin side, almost to the point of being penny wise, pound foolish. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this increase.
Thank you, Mark.
One additional. Mr. Bryce learned a few weeks ago in the orientation about the new hire and agree this is a lean just for others here and for the record. Can you just talk a little bit about the new hire and changes?
I can talk about it. I can pass over to Dave or Todd here. They're probably better versed in it for you, to be honest.
Sure, Kevin, happy to do that. So the organizational chart that the board endorsed back in October of 23 added capacity for us new statewide grants and contract management procurement person as we've worked to put out more of our own grants out the door and matching grants for bill and IIJA money. We realized that we're starting to run out of a little bit of bandwidth to keep doing that in an effective way. So that would be the new position that we're adding to our board. And then we would reorient some of our planning staff where we would have one of our planners be more senior focused on the front range airports that take a little more time and energy now than they used to, and then move the rest to a more eastern western slope arrangement like we have today with you all on the board. So that's the reorg in a nutshell. So we'd be moving our total full-time contingent from 9 to 10. That would be the take. So
we have a motion on the table. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Yep, the next one for me is a motion to approve the FY26 aeronautics property budget request in the amount of $80,000. We don't have any big capital projects on the plan here this year, just as we didn't last year. It's been a couple of years since we did. So really, it's just kind of the maintaining cost. The budget we're asking for is $80,000. Last year was $80,100. We just kind of rounded that. The allocation of that, there's usually about $10,000 worth of capital cost, HVAC, miscellaneous things like that kind of come up during the year that we budget for that. And then our overall cost just associated with the building and the upkeep and the cleaning and all that sort of stuff, rent, is on the storage unit, I should specify, is about $70,000. So looking for a motion to approve the property budget request for FY26 in the amount of $80,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Thank you, Bryce. Let's go to item 11. Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and big welcome to our new members as well. I am Todd Green. I'm the program manager for the division, and I will be presenting all of agenda item 11. It is a little bit of a cluster with multiple different approvals in it, but I will try to help us as we work through this. So on behalf of the division planning staff and all the airports here and all the airports around the state, I'm happy to present the first round of the 2025 Colorado Discretionary Aviation Grant Program, which accounts for our state and local grants this year. We usually take the federal match grants to the April meeting. So again, this is kind of just that first round of grants. So this set was actually all presented in detail at the December meeting. It accounts for 27 airport applications with 31 total different projects. What is pretty interesting about this set, this is our first round that have to account for the 1235 bill. And I will say the staff spent an enormous amount of time implementing that throughout WIMS to ensure that through this grant program, we actually were able to meet all of those requirements with each of these applications. So that was a very big undertaking, especially to try to get it in place. And what was nice is it actually incorporated it through the application process. So they had to certify each of those different things through the application process to meet each of those requirements through 1235. So again, I'll kind of highlight through this again, 27 airports, 31 different projects for this round, totaling just under $14 million at $13,821,016. As usual, our grant program accounts for a lot of pavement and a lot of pavement maintenance. So about 75% of that larger number does account for us either rehabbing pavements, adding some pavement around the state, and then honestly really maintaining what we have. So that's been a really big piece of our program is that pavement maintenance. And you will see that year after year, it's going to be around that 75% of our funding goes to pavement maintenance. And I will say this includes actually our largest grant we've ever asked for approval of, with just over $4.1 million to the Walden Airport to rehabilitate their runway, hopefully their taxiway and ramp when we get good bids. So pretty excited to announce that. Again, throughout the packet, it does kind of show a breakdown of what those projects are for. I also will highlight that 3 of these projects are actually for unleaded fuel projects. One of those projects is at Centennial Airport for a fuel subsidy program. One of those is at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport for another fuel subsidy program. And the other is at the Colorado Air and Spaceport to do a design to install a unleaded fuel tank there at the airport in their fuel farm. So pretty excited. We were able to get 3 of those unleaded fuel projects that we needed to protect $1.5 million of our grant program for that. And so very happy to announce we do have 3 of those through this approval process as well. So we do have this broken down. Again, we did present all of these at the December meeting, but due to possible conflict of interest, we did pull 3 airports out of the mix for the first approval, which will all be on consent agenda. And so we have pulled Centennial Airport out, Denver International Airport out, and Walden, Jackson County Airport out as well. And so I am open to questions, but I am happy to look for approval of the consent agenda for 24 airports, accounting for 27 projects totaling $8,498,000. Be happy to answer any questions you have about the program.
Questions for Tom?
I have a question if you don't mind. So since I'm new on the board, I wasn't in attendance at the December meeting, and I've certainly read through the minutes and watched the meeting. I want to follow up based on what you said, what I know are community concerns, and then what Trustee Shaw brought up in public comments. I appreciate that you guys had to go through what is an additional amount of work to verify compliance and all of the other requirements from the bill. I know from a community perspective that we might like to see some transparency in that, and I realize that that may be an additional work for everybody. I also understand that for the unleaded fuel projects that there's not a condition that they are in compliance, that they certify that they're in compliance in order to receive that grant funding. But I do wonder if for the unleaded fuel projects, if they did start the airports that are receiving it, which the community is very grateful for this movement. We're very grateful to Centennial Airport for really setting the standard here and moving quickly in order to try this new fuel. We couldn't be happier about it. But for these new projects, I'm curious if the airports who did apply certified compliance, and if you could elaborate on that a little.
Thank you for the question, Bree. That's a great question. So as the team over the summer and fall implemented our plans for making sure we were in full compliance with 1235, yes, we have developed an internal checklist that the staff uses to make sure that every single item within 1235 is addressed in their application, including their voluntary noise abatement programs, which for the 5 affected airports, that's part of their compliance. Those plans also had specific components they had to have in it. So our checklist makes sure that the plans that the airport submitted meet all of those. So yes, we have documentation and we have an internal process. We're happy to share those with that, but we have checklists for every single airport grant application, starting with this batch and will going forward to ensure that we're in compliance with 1235. And I wanted to thank Barbara for helping us develop some of those checklists and making sure that we were checking all the boxes to do that.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say, you know, for the record, I've been on both sides of this discussion, from the airport side as well as the board side, and it's an enormous amount of work. I just want to tell you guys how much we appreciate that. I'm sure all these airports appreciate all the work that's done, and obviously it's cooperative between, you know, the airports and the division, but I just want to thank you guys for the amazing amount of work that it takes to get this done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, very good. Todd, let's go on to 11.2.
Thank you very much. Okay, on to 11.2. So our individual action items, again, this accounts for 3 airports that I did pull out of the consent agenda as there was possible conflict of interest to these. And so we'll just go through these kind of one by one with approvals, just so we can make sure that any abstentions are able to be had on all 3 of them. So Centennial Airport is the first one on the list. They actually have 2 projects. This is one of those ones that was an unleaded project as well for the fuel subsidy program. And this is the actually second year of this program as well. So Centennial Airport implemented this program last year and are continuing to draw down on that grant. And so this is funding for their next round of fuel subsidy grants. So that piece accounts for $350,000 of state funding. And then the second project at Centennial is the purchase of a snow removal equipment, which is going to be most likely a front end loader with a blower attachment, accounting for another $324,000. So I'm looking for approval for both of those Centennial Airport projects, totaling $674,000.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to register my abstention.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, 11.2.2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this one is for the Denver International Airport. I will say it is somewhat rare when we can get together with the Denver International Airport staff and find a project that fits within our program and also fits within their budget. It's really hard for us to handle a CIP like Denver International Airport when they talk about their next runway being a little bit more expensive than the money we have. But over the last couple of years, we have found some projects that fit within that. And so for this round, we're actually really excited about this program. We got an application for them to help with their digital wayfinding system throughout the concourse and throughout the terminal. And so this will really kind of update all of their wayfinding, their signs, really to help with ADA compliance. There's a lot to this that really helps the flying public through this. And so with this, we are looking for approval for the Denver International Airport application totaling $497,016 for that installation.
Thank you, Todd. Would entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, great. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, 11.2.3.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So this is the last of the individual action items for the Walden-Jackson County Airport. So again, this is one of the ones I highlighted a little bit ago that talks about this is the largest grant we've actually looked to give out from the Division of Aeronautics. It accounts for $4,152,000 at the Walden-Jackson County Airport. So this is to reconstruct their runway. And a lot of people ask, why are you spending money at such a small airport like this? And this has really been a conversation through our staff, through our system plan. This is one of those airports that kind of sits out by itself. And so we see it as a very rural airport and remote airport. But as we kind of learned during some of the fires we had a few years ago, this is a very important airport for emergency response, for fires, for medevacs, for everything like that. And so that is the reason we are looking to move forward with this project with this airport. And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but looking for approval of the runway reconstruction project accounting for $4,152,000.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions?
So Todd, where's the local money coming from?
So this is a really interesting one. Again, so rural and remote usually means that the local community does not have a whole lot of local money to put forward to a project. And again, all of these projects are 90% state funded and they come with a 10% local match. And so match on a $4 million project accounts for almost $500,000. So I will say the airport, the local community has worked with their consultant to find an interesting way to match this. So they are actually working with DOLA to get some DOLA grants to help match this. And they're also looking at alternative ways to bring more local cash to this project as well, whether that's bringing local aggregate to a project like this. But we're able to find some very good ways that they can actually provide work for the project or product for the project rather than just outright cash. So I really appreciate the local community finding a good way to support a project of this size. It's pretty impressive
for a community, this remote to be able to come up with this kind of money. That's why.
Yes, it is.
That's why the question. That's great.
Great question.
Shows great community support there.
Yeah. I just had a quick question, Mr. Chair, just a curiosity. How long is that runway?
Boy, I don't remember, Daniel. There's a funny story behind our runway at 33 Victor. Years and years ago, when I was a kid, there's a wealthy landowner that actually he wanted to fly his 707 into Walden. And he brought a lot of horsepower and a lot of funding to extend our runways so we can handle some pretty large jets in at the airport. I think we're 7,000 feet, but I'd have to look back on my chart.
That's interesting. It looks pretty long in that picture. I was just curious.
Yeah, it is in absolutely horrible shape. So as a member of the 33 Victor Association, I want to express our deepest thanks to the division for all its work on this, and I'll be abstaining from the vote. Any other discussion?
So the answer to the question is 5,900 feet and 75 feet wide. So.
Oh, okay.
You just have nothing to compare it to because there's not a lot up there.
We've got a crosswind runway too.
Yes, you do.
So you'll have to come up there.
I should.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, very good. Okay, let's move to 11.3.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So with all of those approvals we just did, we combine those all into one attachment because one of the requirements of the approval of this grant program is it also goes to the governor's office for their concurrence of the program as well. And so that's really what this next step is to help with. So again, in total, all of these 27 airports and their 31 projects account for $13,821,016. And so today, with this approval, I am looking for approval of CAB Resolution 2025-01 with the associated attached grant application summary that includes all 31 of these projects for those 27 airports.
Great. Questions for Todd?
I have a question. Why are we not talking about the other airports? Why have we only touched on a few?
For the individual action?
Yeah.
So everything else was handled in the consent agenda. So all of the other airport grants were held there. Again, that's really the reason we do this big review is in December. And the main reason for that is we want the board to be able to actually see what those projects are, be able to think about them a little bit more over the month. And then that's the reason they kind of sit on the consent rather than actual individual action at this meeting.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if anybody had this in front of them that they were wondering why they weren't mentioned. Okay, thank you.
And I will say the whole list of grants is included in the board packet. I believe it is actually included on each of the tables as well. This whole list that shows each of these. It doesn't show the green for the unleaded projects, but yes, if you look on the tables, that is a whole, the complete list is on the tables that will be attached to this CAB Resolution 2025-01.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot it was on the tables.
All right. Other questions for Todd? Would entertain a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, Mark.
So, I'm gonna make the same comment I made in, at the December board meeting, which is again, recognition of the staff for spreading this money, throughout the state and not just large airports getting the lion's share of it, but rural airports having an opportunity to receive funding to support their airports. And, again, as we talk about the local contribution of that, for some airports it's difficult, but the staff helps them find ways to find those funds. So, somewhat, I want to say again, thank you to the staff for making sure that all the needs are taken care of as much as we can with the money we have, rather than, just a couple, larger airports getting the lion's share of money. Doesn't happen here. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I? Just one quick comment, just again, a compliment to the division and a reminder, some of you probably were around back when all of the airports during this conference would have to cycle through and individually make their case for the grants that they were asking for. The division pre-vets this, a lot of work that's really not seen and, kind of behind the scenes preparing, ensuring that all of the requirements are met. That all really pays off, makes this an efficient process. And it's all, I think, due to the division and the way that they effectively manage this project or this program. So thank you to that.
Well said. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, very good. Let's go to item 12. Eddie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Welcome to all the new members. I'm Hetty Carlson, the Education and Outreach Specialist for the division. Just to note, there will be 2 actions needed for agenda item 12. The first request is CAB approval to award 10 grant applicants with aviation, education, and workforce development grant funds totaling $395,879.25. Just a little background. Last year in October, CAB approved $400,000 in FY 2025 funding for the Aviation Education Workforce Development Grant Program, which allowed us to conduct 1 round of grant solicitations and approvals. In the same month, the CAB also approved a change to that grant cycle timeline to accommodate staff workload and school district availability. So following that, in October, we did open the application period, hoping to attract organizations and entities that focus on aviation education and workforce development and help develop the talent pipeline needed to support our future aviation system needs within the state of Colorado. So each applicant was asked 9 questions that closely follows the Aviation and Education Workforce Development Grant Program manual. The application period closed December 15th, and we closed out with 18 grant submittals. Total requested funds were $467,911 over approved funding. So following review, staff worked with 7 applicants to eliminate ineligible items and focus projects on key initiatives to remain within our $400,000 budget. The 10 applicants are as follows, and there is a graph for you. Ames Community College, we're looking for a trainer for their airframe and power plant program, and that's opening up in 2026. So they're going to be standing that program up, which is fantastic. Air Academy High School is looking for Redbird flight simulators to support their AOPA curriculum that they already have in place. Cherry Creek Innovation Campus is looking for an air cycle machine. I'm unfamiliar with that, but that's for their airframe and power plant program as well. Really fun fact to note that CCIC is the first secondary education facility to stand up a Part 147 airframe and power plant program within the state of Colorado, which is pretty fantastic. So all seniors
who are in the program, they will graduate with their airframe and power plant certificate. So pretty special. Denver School of Science and Technology. They're asking for funding for phase 2 of their CubeSat project. I was able to go there last week. They have a fantastic program there. Metropolitan State University of Denver. Trimby, you'll love this. They're looking for a mixed reality flight training simulator. So Neurodiversity Works, they want to train DJI, LiDAR, and camera UAS programming for neurodivergent communities within the state of Colorado. Poudre School District Career Tech Center is also looking for 6 DJI mini aircraft or drones for their UAS program. Smoky Hill High School. They are looking to expand their UAS program with filmography, photogrammetry, drones, and thermal camera. St. Vrain Valley Innovation Center, they are looking to replace their laser cutter for aeronautics and innovation pathways within their school district. And last but not least, Westminster Schools, the Random Innovation Campus, which just opened up last year, are looking for lab equipment for their aviation mechanic program pathway. They also use the Choose Aerospace program. So if you aren't familiar with that, I highly suggest looking it up. It's pretty fantastic. And as Bryce mentioned, due to the grant cycle timeline change, this is technically the second round of FY 2025 grants, as these will be executed in the same fiscal year. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that one. I'm looking for CAB approval of the 10 applicants for a total of $395,879.25 in FY 2025 aviation education and workforce development grants.
Thank you, Hetty. Questions?
Hey, question. This is a wonderful program. And
Thank you.
Thank you for the background. The packet included a link to the applications themselves. And reviewing that link, there was obviously not every project was funded at full request. What did the back and forth process look like to make sure that the program could still exist? I didn't look at all, but I looked at a couple, for example, Poudre. So they requested $25,000 or so for not just the 5 mini drones, but also to build their own drones. And it was a much larger program. How do we ensure that Poudre and the other applicants receive supplemental funding to make sure that the program can exist?
Typically within their application, we do ask if they are looking for other funders. And we kind of look at that and we determine that if they do, if they're looking at more than just the division, that most likely they will receive funding. A lot of Perkins funds also cover the cost of those programs. I don't know if that answered your question.
So in that scenario where the other funding didn't come up, would they still receive this funding, or is this?
Yes, and they will have to sign a grant contract, and they have to essentially abide by those grant elements. Yeah.
Other questions for Hetty? Okay, would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So I'm also asking approval, sorry.
Just like you say, 4.2.
Yes, for the Aviation Education Resolution 2025-2 for funding of those approved grants.
Any questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Hetty.
Thank you.
Okay, Todd, let's talk about agenda item 13.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to say I only need one action on this, not 15. With this action item, I am introducing the FY 2026 statewide initiative budget. So in addition to our grants that we can actually give out to airports for specific projects to get things done at their airports, we're also able to do more projects that have a larger statewide focus or more than one airport focus. And that's really what the statewide initiatives are about. And so this is something that we always bring to the January meeting. I will say I tried to leg wrestle Bryce to move this to the April meeting. And as you can see, I probably lost that leg wrestle. And that really goes back to the fact where we are a part of CDOT. And so CDOT's budgeting process kind of requires us to get out ahead of the FY26 or the upcoming fiscal year program with our budgets. And so that's the reason that's this request actually comes in January every year rather than in April, a little closer to the fiscal year. So I did lose that fight. I teared up a little, but we'll work through it. So this year's program accounts for 18 different initiatives. I am only requesting funding for 17 of those initiatives. We'll talk about it here in just a second. But those initiatives account for $3,230,000. So this is just a little bit less than what we asked to spend last year, but it accounts for all of these different programs like our Airport AWAS program, the internship program. One of those that I'll highlight that is newer to the system is our airport operations monitoring system that we kind of just implemented here in January. And we have a few of the vendors here actually for that, but a very good program for our airports to be able to start tracking their operations in a much more technological way rather than just kind of counting them as they see them come in. So really excited to kick that program off. But again, 18 different initiatives here we're requesting funding for. The one that we aren't asking money for right now is actually the NREL study, which Dave will talk about here in a little bit for phase 2. We're just not ready to ask for funding for that yet. There may be a future request, but Dave will talk about that here after a bit. But again, each of these initiatives does include a brief yet pretty detailed memo in the packet that kind of highlights what each of these programs does statewide. Again, a lot of these are safety critical for us. Again, these are pretty important for us to get out there, and we're excited to implement these programs. And for everyone in the audience as well, there is a copy of these on your table as well, so you can see exactly what we're looking at. It's the exact same thing that is on the slide as well. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have about any of the initiatives, or I'm looking for approval of $3,230,000 for the FY 2026 statewide initiative budget.
Todd, one question about the airport operations monitoring system. As I recall, in some states, they've tried to turn that into a funding mechanism by charging different fees depending on the use on the airport. My understanding is that's not the case with this particular program.
I think, Mr. Chair, I'll take that one. We're going to leave it up to the airport to decide how they want to use it, or even if they want to use it. So I think we're going to be agnostic on that and leave that up to the airport if they decide whether to do that or not.
Okay, I just flag that as a concern that we monitor and consider in future years if that does tend to be the case here in Colorado.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, we see this as kind of a good one for us, not for that aspect, but we also every 10 years we update our aviation system plan, and this will give us some very good data in preparation to update that here in 3 or 4 years. So that's the reason kind of on a statewide benefit, that's where we truly see the benefit of it, and that's the reason we are looking to put some money into it as well.
Yeah, understand. Other questions for Todd?
I just had a comment, actually. This is what I brag to my counterparts in Kansas about, these programs and everything, that they're so envious of these things. So we're very appreciative of that. And just one quick little specific story going down to the weather camera system. I had a situation where we had and I might have brought this up in another meeting, but with a room full of people, I'd like to bring it up again. We had a military aircraft, a helicopter, trying to get up to Eagle one time for HATS training. And the weather was getting bad, and they were using the system weather cameras to really help make a judgment call on whether to go or not. They ended up turning around and going home. But in the process because I brought that up to them, I said, hey, we've got this great network of weather cameras. They said, oh yeah, we know, there's a link to it on the military website. When these guys are preparing for HATS training, there's a link to that, right, that they all use. And so, I mean, from a safety of flight perspective, from improvement of airport operations. I mean, this is just an awesome, and this is what I brag about when I talk to other people. So it's a great program.
So Angela?
Yes, I just have a process question. So obviously this is really far into the future. It's a plan right now. What does the process look like typically as you get closer? Do you come back to the board to reallocate funds, or does staff have that flexibility?
So great question. So we won't really plan on bringing anything back for approvals between now and the start of the fiscal year. I will say some of these on this list, we don't know exactly if it's enough to cover it. I'll talk crackfill specifically. So this is just kind of an average of the amount of money we've spent for this program over the past 4 or 5 years. But we also look, the crackfill program accounts for 14 or 15 crackfill machines located around the states, kind of regionally. So different airports can use those machines. So I will say, once in a while, those machines break down. And break down hard. And so there's times where we have to replace those. And again, we replace those at 100% our cost. So those airports don't have to, just to keep the program going. So some of these, we may come back to you for budget amendments like Bryce just did for the education program. But that's usually how we'll bring it back and say, hey, we've run into an issue. I will say we don't wait until we don't have any money left in that. We're watching it as we go through the year and say, hey, this one's getting a little close. We may need to talk about increasing this budget a little bit. And then the other one I've had to do that for over time was the Mountain AWAS program. For some reason, one year we actually had two completely destroyed, one by lightning and one by fire. And so those are pretty expensive pieces of equipment to replace. And again, they were both insurance claims, but we need to get them replaced right away. And so that's where we would come back to this board and ask for an update to the budget to account for changes that we couldn't necessarily foresee, if that answers your question.
And I'll just piggyback off that as well. Like you mentioned, we'll come to you guys with an adjustment. We need additional funding within the cost center. A lot of these have been stood up long enough that historically we've got a pretty good grasp of what to expect from a cost standpoint outside of, lightning and fire in the same year. But yeah, so I would bring them to the board. This is why we're looking for additional funding. We try not to do that very often because, like I said, we do kind of know what a lot of these do cost. But if something pops up out of the ordinary, or we get a program in sync better for future years, like we did with education this year, I'll come before you guys at the board meeting. So it's pretty well planned out. Since I've been here for 8+ years, I think there's maybe been once it's like, oh crap, we need to get this funding now. Usually we're ahead of the pace and never really run into budget issues as far as that goes.
Mark? So Todd, I need help, reminding me, refreshing my memory, something we talked about in December, and that this is around the Wildlife Services program. And I believe what we talked about was that they needed to add a part-time person to cover Western Slope because the person could go back, so Eastern Slope, Western Slope coverage was an issue. And I don't, it's a modest increase in the budget. So does this number include that person being hired by USDA to support both front end, every Eastern Slope and Western Slope?
Great question. And yes, it does. So prior to all three of these numbers you see on there for the 24-25 approvals and then this 26 request, we were averaging around $230,000 for this program. And so yes, this budget amount of $340,000 does account for that part-time Western Slope. Because as you are correct, it's tough for our Eastern Plains wildlife biologists to make it to the Western Slope when things come up, and usually things come up pretty quickly, or we need to account for an upcoming certification inspection. And so yes, this amount does account for that part-time position on the Western Slope. Thank you for asking on that one.
Mr. Chair, just one last comment for the benefit of our newer members. The one of these that is the most dynamic that you'll see going forward is item 15 on surplus equipment. When we set the budget for this sale, we don't know yet what Denver and other airports will make available. And we've had times where we've gotten a great big list of equipment from Denver, and we may come back and ask for more money. So that may happen in the next couple months, but that's the one that we may most frequently ask for budget amendments for later on when we learn what will be available.
That was the one.
Yeah.
Great, would entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. All right, let's move to program updates and 14.1, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome new members of the board. So I know in the previous updates, I've promised that we were planning to release numbers for CAOA as the results of our year-long economic impact study, the 2025 economic impact study. But recently we've decided to put that off for a little bit longer in order to do a little bit more education and outreach with the airports to maybe explain some of the nuances and changes in the economy and industry that have occurred in the past couple of years. So we're going to take a little bit more time to do that, but we are joined by Tom and Patrick with our Kinley Horn team, and they'll be giving an update tomorrow, a more detailed update as to what to expect for the final products. And I do see it might be a typo. It's scheduled for 10 o'clock during our CDOT update. Dave will introduce the Kinley Horn team to give you a presentation and a slideshow with more information, but it says 10 to 10:15. It's going to be longer than that. So I think that's supposed to be 10:45. But just a heads up, we'll find out a lot more tomorrow. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have now.
Great. Any questions?
So final delivery date, has that changed?
No, we will have a full technical report and all the deliverables by April. Most of it's in final draft form now. And the numbers are finalized, but we just need to message what the expectations are before we start releasing them.
Trimby, did you have a question? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a whole lot to report. I think just as a little bit of background for those of you in the room that might not be familiar, back in 2023, this board approved $400,000 of funding for us to do a collaborative study with the National Renewable Energy Lab to get out ahead of some of this cool new aviation technology coming down the pike: battery electric, general aviation training airplanes, hydrogen, hybrid powered regional aircraft, sustainable aviation fuel, all these new things that we're saying are going to kind of change the way airplanes are powered. That means a lot in terms of changes with airport infrastructure and, you know, being innovative and trying to be ahead of all this. You all supported our request to do an effort with NREL, and it's really cool to have NREL right in our own backyard here in Colorado. They do amazing things, not just in transportation, but with all kinds of energy things. And so that report to help us kind of get an initial grasp of what that might look like in terms of infrastructure considerations, power grid upgrades, safety, all these kinds of things. The initial report was provided to us for staff review late last month. We've offered a lot of comments back to them. They're in the process of incorporating our comments, and next month we expect to have the final version of that report that we'll share with all of you. We'll look forward to getting feedback from you on what you think our next steps would be and leverage that with our airport community and NREL to see what do we need to do now that we know a little bit about this. That's the reason there was no dollar amount plugged into the NREL study and the statewide initiatives. We just want to put that on your radar that that's something we're not done. This is not a report we're just going to look at, stick on the shelf. We want to see how we can actually maybe take some actions. And so we'll come back to you in the next few months with some ideas based on that report. Look for your input too on what you think we ought to be looking at going forward. And of course, our airport community as well. So that's the update on the NREL study. We look forward to sharing that with you very soon.
Thank you, Dave. Should we move on to digital tower?
Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, and welcome the new board members to the panel. I'm Bill Payne. I'm the program manager for our digital tower project, and I'm going to give an update, but with the help of Rachel Jackson from RTX, aka Raytheon, aka Collins. Anyway, they can't seem to keep their names straight. I also want to recognize Matt Richardson, which would frequent us in the back room. Matt was the program manager for NextGen when we were running our program up at FNL, Northern Colorado Regional Airport. And welcome to see Matt. Just real quick, I will describe some of the things that we've been doing. One of the things was Dave and Rachel and myself attended the commission meeting at FNL on the 16th and gave them an update on the program, where they are in the system design process. And so I'm going to let Rachel talk more about that. There has been some real good progress made. They've gone through site acceptance tests, they've gone through training, and are getting ready to start their first set of batch testing, which in the FAA parlance is they're going to have 6 batch testings. The first one is called batch 0. So that's go figure. Anyway, I'll let Rachel talk, and then I've got a couple of things I'll bring up.
Yeah, thank you, Bill, and thank to all of you for having us. I'll be very brief. I'm certainly here for the next 2 days to answer questions specifically. But just for those who are new, I do represent the part of Raytheon Allens Air Inc. that builds air traffic control systems for the FAA. So if you fly in and out of Denver, the controllers are using our systems. So the reason that's critically important is that for a system like a digital tower, where the FAA is really it's a first for them to go through this, despite the efforts they've had in the past few years, is that we build air traffic systems for a living. It's what we do. We understand the FAA process and how they operate. And so that's been very important, because we're bringing the same level of rigor to this program that we bring to STARS or WASP, for those of you who know WASP, et cetera, and any of we do HF voice communications across the ocean. So it's pretty, we've got a robust background in doing these sorts of systems around the world. Where SDA is concerned, we did get past the intake process. We've been delivering documentation, and the SDA process is a combination of operational testing to evaluate the system, and then also evaluating documentation so that when this system is declared, it gets its SDA certification, so to speak. Once you go to an airport, there are no other activities that the FAA needs to do to certify it, except that we will be doing local adaptation and checkout at the airport. So that's a very important component. As Bill said, we've been doing dry runs. Official controller training starts on February the 3rd. We start testing February the 10th. We're expecting that to take 9 months. We're pressuring the FAA to try to move that schedule to the left, obviously. But we are investing our own money both for Qantas and Raytheon to make this happen. So we've got a vested interest in making sure this is successful. This gets briefed up to our senior leadership and management from the standpoint of our commitments. So we're very encouraged about this. And the other thing we're also working on, the FAA has come out with an idea of doing a tower display. They call the program APRT. Well, we provide tower displays all over the NAS every day, all day. We've got 700 or 900 different tower displays today. And so we are working with the FAA to get our system, quote unquote, qualified as a non-Fed asset, where we could sell that system directly to an airport, just like we would do with digital tower also. And that would be a version of STARS. So it would be the same thing they have in New York, LaGuardia, Denver, Dallas, Albuquerque, et cetera. So I'm here to answer questions at all, and thank you very much again for letting us come up and give you kind of an update.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, one other thing I want to talk about, and Mark brought this up, this has to do with the what's going on with the southern constellation of the wide area ADS-B system in the state of Colorado. I was a program manager for that when we did it. It was commissioned in 2013. The state Public Safety Communications Group has said that they will no longer allow the FAA to remain on their microwave link. In other words, to get the communications down to Denver Air Route Traffic Control Center in Longmont that covers the 4 airports of Gunnison, Montrose, Durango, and Telluride. Now, if they are not able to come to some agreement, then that system will be shut down until they can come up with a situation. That is very serious, because we'll lose radar coverage there. I find it very ironic that the public safety communications people are doing something like this. Now, there's a call scheduled next week with the FAA's Program Management Office to discuss this issue. This is a very serious thing. The state of Colorado teamed with the FAA to do in the northern part, the 4 airports in the northern part of the state, and the 4 airports in the southern part of the state. So please understand, this is something that is going to adversely affect air traffic into those 4 airports if something cannot be resolved. So anyway, if there are any questions, comments, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bill. Questions? Brimby, did you have one? It was a head fake, I think. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, and thank you for coming today. Let's move on to 15 legislative updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the one big thing I'll just point out, and it's no secret, I know to the airports in the room, is even though a bipartisan FAA 5-year reauthorization bill was passed by Congress way back in last May in record time, the money for that has still not been appropriated. The previous Congress kicked that can to the new Congress, and they have not taken any action yet. So the FAA funding programs are still operating under a continuing resolution, at least until March. I can't remember the exact date. So it's going to be something that the new Congress will wrestle with, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are of interest to us in our advocacy resolution here in a little bit. So that's the one thing I'll flag that we're certainly paying attention to. I'm also looking at the airports in the room. There's been a lot of conversations, not just within the FAA, but within all federal spending programs about an administratively ordered halt to any disbursement of funds for a lot of federal funding programs. As of this morning, unless something has changed, I'm looking at Greg and some of the folks that are also involved with AAAE. The indication is that is not impacting already contracted AIP grants. If you all hear something different, I'd love to know. Again, that isn't something that really directly impacts us because in Colorado, federal funding for airport flows directly to the airports, not through us. We don't touch any federal dollars here. But I think that's something certainly to keep aware of because we don't want to see projects getting halted or reimbursement requests not being funded for that. So we'll keep you all in a loop in that. I sent you the email this morning from the AAA folks about that. So that's what we're focused on. So before I introduce our next folks here, happy to answer any questions about any of that. Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to introduce Herman Stockinger. He is CDOT's Deputy Director and the Office of Policy and Government Relations as well. And Herman, good to see you. It's been a little bit since we've had you at one of our meetings, so glad to see you.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here. Just wanted to take the opportunity on behalf of Executive Director Shoshana Liu and our Chief of Staff, Sally Chafee, and myself to welcome the new board members. It's great to have you as part of the CDOT team. As Dave said, we don't often come to the Aeronautic Board meetings too, because Dave and his staff has it covered. We interface with Dave and his division in a couple of different ways. We have a weekly senior management team at CDOT that we meet every week on Mondays. Dave is part of that, talks about what's happening in the aviation world. We also meet, the three of us, Director Liu, our Chief of Staff, and myself, meet with Dave every month to go through things that are happening. He shared many of the slides that you all saw today with us, especially the grant things was great information to have gotten. And then Dave and I get together every couple of months for breakfast just to get the two of us get caught up. So I think he also has the distinction of having the division with the least amount of turnover over the last decade or so. It's really impressive. And I think it's a testament to how much they enjoy their jobs and what a great job Dave does. Since this is a legislative update, I'll just give you a quick little bit of information of what's happening at the state capitol. The state as a whole is facing about $640 million in reductions that need to happen this legislative session to get the budget in balance. Transportation is a contributor to that. We get some general fund dollars from a previous bill that's $100 million a year. We're going to see that reduced by about $35 million each of the next couple of years. There's also road safety surcharge. We have it's a faster safety program, and we will have that reduced about $35 million this year, and then ongoing. Actually, I think I flipped it. It's 65 million reduction in the state funds, and then 35 million reduction ongoing in the faster safety program. Our legislative liaison is Emily Hadaway. She's the one that interfaces with our General Assembly members and is the person who works with the governor's office. We don't, whether it be Emily or myself or Dave or his division, we can't take any position on a bill unless we visited with the governor's office to understand what their position is. We don't testify on bills without coordinating with the governor's office on that. Our boards and commissions, I'm the secretary of our Colorado Transportation Commission. Our boards and commissions sometimes take positions, formal positions on legislation. And that's okay. If you do that and that results in wanting to do some testimony, coordinate with Dave to make sure that Dave and Emily, they work together closely on any bills that impact aviation. They'll help figure out what the right strategy is for the bill. As board members, and you have the AG's office here to clarify if you ever have any questions, but as board members, as citizens, you have the right to testify on legislation if you want to. We would caution you not to use your title as part of your testimony unless you're specifically representing the Aeronautical Board. And then if that's the case, you will have coordinated with Dave and Emily Hadaway. And then lastly, as part of my job as the Secretary of the Transportation Commission, would like to invite you all to lunch with the Transportation Commission. April, Dave, is that where? April at our CDOT headquarters building. We'll learn a little bit about transportation, a little bit about aviation, a little bit about roads, and just get to know our other commission, and that's our Transportation Commission. They do have a line item in their budget, as you kind of heard in the discussion here about your budget. They have a line item budget that highlights the Aeronautical Board and the funds that go through. They don't have the flexibility to change that. It's kind of a pass through. They have to have it in our overall CDOT budget, but then it's up to you all and with Dave guidance on how to handle those dollars. So I think that's it for me, unless you have any questions. All right.
Questions for Herman? Thank you, Herman.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you for coming.
You bet.
Okay, 15-2, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, that's a perfect segue into the next item, which is the 2025 advocacy resolution. For the last decade since I've been with the division, we have put this in front of the board to help you sort of understand what's important to aviation and airports. And then when we get asked, what does the board think about a particular issue, we have sort of a preemptive idea that I can feed to Herman and our legislative folks about what you all think as our board about certain things impacting aviation. It's typically focused on the federal level. To be honest with you. So this year, the advocacy resolution that is before you has a few edits from last year. I'll just review those pretty quickly. A lot of these are due to the aforementioned FAA reauthorization bill that was passed in May. That was HR 3985. So one of the things that we have had in our resolution for as long as I can remember is support for changes to the passenger facility charges that commercial service airports are permitted to collect by FAA. And as I look at David Reed and Greg, as I see airports have been supportive of that. It hasn't changed in 25 years. There's probably no hope that it's ever going to change now that we have a 5-year bill. So I think it's still something we're supporting, but it's sort of moot to have that in there now. So we're suggesting an elimination of that language, certainly not to support if an opportunity comes back up. But that is a great funding tool that airports can avail themselves of to help them complete capital projects that are not necessarily funded by us or FAA or other programs. So we'll still keep an eye on that. We also included deletion of support for non-primary entitlement FAA funding reform. I think everybody in this room knows the basic entitlement grant level for a non-primary commercial service airport is $150,000 a year. It doesn't go very far. Centennial gets the same $150,000 that Daniel gets. And you might say that's probably not the best way to allocate federal funding. And I think the airport community and we previously have said, well, maybe there's a better way to structure that so that Centennial gets federal entitlement that's more commensurate with their level of activity. We had supported that. AAA had supported that in the last FAA bill. I mean, I say we, I'm talking state aviation officials like us. Didn't make it into the final bill, so it's not going to be something that's going to be talked about for the next few years. So something to keep our radar on, but does not need to be, we don't think, in our advocacy resolution for 2025. Based on HR 3985, we also updated our support language that's been in there for many years on the unleaded avgas transition, the FAA's Eliminate Aviation Gasoline-Lead Emissions Initiative, digital tower projects, fluorine-free firefighting foam, that's hard to say, transition, and FAA funding levels based on all of that. So again, as I mentioned, congressional appropriations for the bill still need to be considered. So the resolution language has been updated to reflect that as well. The other change we did is we deleted the remote tower contract program language. Good for us. We had been working very closely with Senator Hickenlooper's office and the folks up at Northern Colorado Regional Airport to get language in the 5-year FAA bill that does make digital/remote towers eligible for inclusion in the contract tower program once that technology is approved by FAA. And you heard that Rachel's group is really leading the charge here on that there. So we have eliminated that because we won. So thanks to Bill for helping us work on that. So the other thing we did is we just made a couple of other changes, just administrative changes on that. So again, that's the advocacy resolution. We sent that all to you for review here even before your board packet went out. Didn't get any feedback from you. So the draft is in that packet, Mr. Chair, and that's the advocacy resolution that we have before you today. I would point out if something evolves between now and next year that requires any feedback from the board or you all want to weigh in on something, we can certainly revisit this with all of you at a later date.
Great. Questions for Dave? Would entertain a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, great. Let's move on to 16.
Just a very quick item here, Mr. Chair, again, for our new board members, we talked a little bit about this in our orientation session a couple of weeks ago. Each August, the CAB reviews and updates as necessary our governance doc. Again, Caitlin referenced an audit that took place of our division back in 2009, and one of the recommendations of that was that the board prepare and adopt, basically it's our bylaws on how you all operate and function and what your responsibilities are. We call it a governance doc. That's been in place since 2009. With the addition of new members and change in our previous members, we've updated the governance doc to reflect that. And then we've done some really basic cleanup items to make sure that the travel expense reimbursement part aligns with current CDOT rules on that. So that's the only changes we made to that. You will all again have the chance to review this in depth at our August workshop. And if we need to make any more substantive changes to that, we can do so at that point in time. But for now, we're just asking Mr. Chair for adoption of the new governance doc to reflect our current board member roster.
Great. Questions? Entertain a motion? Is there a second? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thanks, everyone. Proposed calendar?
Okay, Mr. Chair, as Herman already noted, Wednesday, April 16th at noon, please mark your calendars. We will have a joint lunch with the Transportation Commission followed by our regular meeting also at CDOT headquarters. So we'll look forward to that. Herman, thanks for setting that up. I know you've got a lot of new members on the TC, so we'll look forward to getting to know them as well. And then June 18th to 20th is the CAOA Spring Conference in Steamboat Springs. As we get closer to that date, we'll identify the time and date of our board meeting, but it will be sometime there. Typically, it's early on in that meeting, just like it is for this one, but we'll keep you all posted on that. So that's the calendar coming forward. Again, at our orientation, the board expressed interest in our offer to help set up field trips for all of you on months where we don't have meetings. Right now, I'm working with Bill Payne and his folks at the FAA to set up a tour of the Denver Terminal Radar Approach Control Facility, or TRACON, which is out by DIA in March. So I'll reach out to you here after this meeting is over on some potential dates that might work for you. Will be flagged as just a workshop, no public action taken, but we'll identify that and get y'all out there if you want to go see it. I've never seen it as long as I've been in aviation in Colorado. I've been in a lot of other ATC facilities, but not TRACON. So I look forward to that. So flag that, and then we'll work on some other options too.
Worth the trip.
Very cool.
Great. Okay, how about other matters?
Mr. Chair, if I might have the privilege, just real briefly, I wanted to maybe recognize Greg Phillips. He is the airport director at Colorado Springs. I'd like to maybe put him a little bit on the spot because Mr. Phillips, after years and years of service at the Springs, has announced his retirement from the airport this week. So I thought I'd maybe see if he has some sage advice for us.
I see shocked faces. I don't know. So, Dave, Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me a moment just to address the board and really all the members present. First, I love these meetings, quite frankly, because to hear the movement, the direction, the growth of aviation in Colorado is just, for me, heartwarming. Just a quick update about Colorado Springs, because like other airports in the audience, it's been a great year. On the 23rd, the Gazette had an article announcing the highest enplanements in Colorado Springs in 25 years. So we have seen so much growth since Southwest Airlines started in 2021, growth since then. And now with momentum, 2025 looks to be a great year as well, with Allegiant Airlines starting service in February, 3 different routes, with American Airlines adding Chicago route in June, Delta adding a second daily flight to Salt Lake City in June, and then importantly, our first ever international service starting with Southwest Airlines to Cancun on June 7th. So buy your tickets now. It has been a great year, but beyond that, airports are so much more than just, a commercial airport like ours, so much more than just the commercial aviation here. The general aviation plays such a huge part in our airport and the airports across the state. And we've seen significant growth there. We don't have UL 94 at Colorado Springs yet, but we've certainly had a lot of conversations about it. And I would love to see that happen at Colorado Springs, and we'll continue to work on it here. Of course, we're fighting hard to keep Space Command headquarters at Peterson Space Force Base on Colorado Springs Airport. And then in addition, our non-aeronautical business park continues to grow with 3 Amazon facilities, DoD contractors, other development here. And that happens not just because of what Colorado Springs is doing, but it happens from the support from the state. And I want the new board members to know, and for all the existing board members, just how hard this organization, CDOT Aeronautics, Dave and his staff work for you. You've seen it, and it's been stated a couple of times here, but I've watched it for 8 years, and it really, really has been tremendous to see the cutting edge efforts of CDOT Aeronautics to keep Colorado aviation moving forward. When I look around the room here, you're the engines of aviation in Colorado. You're the ones who drive aviation forward in Colorado. And it has been an honor and a privilege to work with all of you. There's a job opening now in Colorado Springs. So you want to look out for that there. Moonflowers, so think about going back to Colorado Springs. We're also looking for design and construction managers. Throw that out there here. But truly, I just want to say thank you. I'm retiring from Colorado Springs. I want to be clear, I'm not retiring for good. There's too much left to do. And we are at a crossroads in aviation, I think, right now, with advanced air mobility, electrification, everything else that's going on. How could you leave this? How could you walk away? Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the board for your support. It's an honor to work with you and to see everything that's happened in Colorado. Let's keep it going.
Steve.
Greg, I just wanted to recognize you for all you've done for not just Colorado Springs. I mean, everybody would think automatically your airport is what you're interested in, but you have been a huge advocate for airports all over Colorado, really all over the country. But we're focused obviously on Colorado. And so I just wanted to recognize you for that and say thank you and well done.
One thing that strikes me, we heard a few times today about public safety and the issue with radar coverage. Dave, is there anything we can do to help advocate to change that direction?
There is, and I'm looking over at Herman. I briefed him and Sally and Shoshana on this issue yesterday, and we're going to be working behind the scenes to try to facilitate that conversation. Again, it resides within the Department of Public Safety. So directly our leverage is a little bit limited, but it's very important. And so we're at least letting folks know what the issue is and hoping to facilitate some conversation on that.
And would you please let us know if there's anything we can do as a board?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other items? Then would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.